Part 10. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 91. Wrong, you stopped talking again. Nan 11 seemed a little dissatisfied and couldn't help but reach out and pinch his face. Can't you say it? The time has not come yet. Wrong, you held her finger, put it to his lips and took a bite. You will know later. It sounds quite mysterious. Nan 11 pouted her lips, with a bit of playfulness that a girl should have, which made Wrong Yu's heart almost melt into water. Nan 11 touched her fingers, then raised her hand to touch her earlobe, and asked thoughtfully, "Your Majesty, you like to bite me?" "Yes, I like it." Wrong Yu's voice became deeper and seemed to be more bewitching. "I wish I could tear you apart, chew you up bit by bit, and swallow it." Nan 11 felt cold and raised her eyes to look at him. "It sounds like the prince has a deep grudge against me." Wrong Yu smiled low and kissed her neck. "Put you into my body. You will never be able to leave again. You will stay by my side day and night." Nan 11 was silent. "Since you agreed to marry me, you can't regret it anymore." Wrong Yu buried his head in her neck, his voice was low and domineering. "Don't think about that Gu Qingshu again, and don't leave again." Nan 11 put her arms around his waist and smelled the clear breath on his body. "Well, if I never leave again, I will marry you. Everyone else should stay away. The further away the better." The setting sun shines in through the carved windows outside the window, covering a pair of beautiful people sitting hugging each other, making the scene in the hall quiet and beautiful. If a painter with superb painting skills could paint this picture at this time, it would definitely become a masterpiece that shocked the world. "Master, has this been what you wanted?" Qingyang stood leaning against the big tree outside the hall, holding a piece of dogtail grass in his mouth, and his eyes fell leisurely in the direction of Zhaochen Hall. "Although Miss Nan looks very okay, but she is not the only good girl in the capital. Does the master care about her too much? This is not in line with the master's temperament. You'd better not let the prince hear this." Yunya glared at him. "Be careful that the prince skins you." Qingyang pouted. "I told the truth, and I didn't say anything bad about Miss Nan. Of course what the prince likes is the best. How can the daughters of other aristocratic families in the imperial capital compare with the girl?" Yunya frowned. "Don't be so discerning." "Hey." Qingyang laughed. "How long have you been with Miss Nan, and you are just facing her like this?" "Of course I want to be the future mistress of the Prince Regent's palace, otherwise I will be attracted to you," Yunya said angrily. "Besides, Miss Nan is indeed different from those coquettish bitches. The prince has much better vision than you know nothing." Qingyang sighed faintly. "I didn't say anything bad about Miss Nan, I just think that the master's attitude is a bit strange. My master is such a noble person, just like the flower of the high mountain. I have never heard of the master before. Why are you so obsessed with this beauty? Why are you so obsessed with this Nan girl?" He seemed confused. "Tell me, when did the master start to fall in love with Miss Nan?" Yunya shook her head. "How can we, as subordinates, guess what the prince is thinking? Yins Huang, what do you think?" Yins Huang looked at him expressionlessly, as if she thought his question was stupid and she didn't bother to answer it at all. "Forget it, asking you is in vain." Qingyang couldn't help but sigh again, looking a little melancholy. "I have a cold face all day, as if someone owes you tens of thousands of taels of silver and hasn't paid it back. I'm afraid I don't know what feelings are at all." "You know," Yins Huang said in an indifferent tone, "since you know everything, why bother asking me?" Qingyang choked. "Yin Shuang is not curious about this, so it's useless for you to ask her," Yin Yu said. "But you, a grown man who doesn't study martial arts all day long, doesn't think about how to protect his master, and only thinks about irrelevant things, it looks like you will soon be the same as those street ants and wives." 3 ants and 6 wives? Qingyang frowned dissatisfiedly. "You are just a third ant and a sixth wife." Yunya snorted and ignored him. The sky gradually turned dark. That night, the three of them stayed outside the temple. At night, the branches on the big tree were their sleeping places. Miss Nan must be resting on the master's bed tonight. Qing Yang put his hands behind his head and looked up at the star-studded night sky. If you lose your body, you have to give up your heart sooner or later. He felt that his master had been too much of a gentleman before. He was worried that Nan 11 would be angry and make trouble, so he would rather give up his bedroom to Miss Nan at night and sleep in the study by himself. Isn't this stupid? Qing Yang, please don't marry again in this life, Yunyu said coldly. I think you are no different from Gu Qingshu, both are scum. Why am I no different from him? Qing Yang jumped up and argued unconvincingly, isn't what I said the truth? If you don't believe it, just get up and take a look tomorrow. The master will definitely have a happy face, and Miss Nan will also dash. Stop talking. An indifferent and dignified order came from the palace. Qing Yang is punished by kneeling for 3 hours. Bang! Qing Yang fell down from the tree branch and fell flat on his back. Yunyu glanced quietly in the direction of the dormitory, then withdrew her gaze and glanced at Qing Yang on the ground. You deserve it, who allowed you to speak freely? Qing Yang dared to be angry but did not dare to say anything. He only glared at her fiercely, then stood up and knelt obediently, not daring to say another word. Yunyu knelt down, propped up her chin and looked at him. Why don't you speak? Qing Yang looked at her with an evil look. Banned, didn't you hear? Yunyu smiled and showed 2 rows of small white teeth. Let me tell you, although the prince is cold and ruthless, he is really a gentleman in front of Miss Nan. Do you think everyone is as dirty-minded as you, with a belly full of bad water? Qing Yang gritted his teeth. Tell me clearly, who is full of bad water? Who is dirty-minded again? Who else but you? Yunyu snorted coldly, stood up, and swept her body. The whole person flew to the thick branch where Qing Yang was lying just now, half lying down, looking up at the night sky. The night is so beautiful tonight. Her voice has more admiration. If I am as knowledgeable as those rich ladies, I must write 2 poems. Qing Yang sneered. Yin Shuang stood under the tree like an invisible person, and the whole person was hidden in the darkness, like a silent shadow. What did Qing Yang say? Nan 11 leaned on the bed in the inner hall. After taking a bath, she was wearing a soft white robe. Your Majesty, don't blame him too much. He is actually a very good guard. She didn't have as good internal strength and hearing as Rong Yu. At such a long distance, she naturally couldn't hear what the 3 people outside were saying. Rong Yu stood in front of the bed, lowering his eyes and wiping her black hair. His movements were delicate and gentle, for fear that a little careless movement would hurt her. Don't pay attention to him. I'll go to sleep first, and update another chapter during the day. Good night. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 92. After wiping her hair dry, Rong Yu said softly, you go to sleep first, and I'll let Yin Yu come in. Nan 11 said, where are you going? Rong Yu was silent for a moment. Go to the study. He has been resting in the study for more than a month, because Nan 11 is not happy every time she sees him. She can't eat when she sees him during the day, and is too scared to sleep when she sees him at night. Rong Yu didn't want to cause her fear, so he tried to disturb her as little as possible. Isn't this your dormitory? Nan 11 raised her eyebrows, with a smile on her lips. Are you worried that I will be harmful to you? Rong Yu pursed her lips slightly and locked her brows with his dark eyes. We haven't gotten married yet. Anyway, you will be mine sooner or later, Nan 11 said calmly, don't worry, we are just sharing the same bed. Before we get married, I promise not to go hard on you. When Rong Yu heard this, a smile flashed in his eyes. What if I can't control it? Nan 11's eyes were blazing. Can you do it? Won't. Rong Yu would rather hurt herself than do anything she didn't want to do, except for the fact that she was imprisoned in the palace without her consent. Everything else was based on her wishes. Your Majesty, Go take a bath first. Nan 11 smiled lightly. Do you need me to serve your majesty? Rong Yu couldn't help but feel soft in his heart. The girl's bright and moving face is the cinnabar that has been engraved into his bones forever and ever. With just these eyebrows reflected in his pupils, one can feel the fullness and satisfaction of having the whole world, and the heart that has been empty for so many years is filled to the brim, making him feel more at ease than ever before. No need, he suppressed the desire roaring from deep in his heart and said softly, I'll be back soon. Do you want to read a book for a while first? Nan 11 nodded, yes. Rong Yu turned around and brought a book to her. They are all interesting folk stories. Folk anecdotes? Nan 11 looked down at the light blue cover and pondered for a moment. Are there any medical books in the prince's study? Medical book? Rong Yu said, why do you suddenly want to read medical books? I already know a little bit about it. If I have time, I can study it more in the future. Nan 11 said with a smile, Your Majesty is proficient in military strategy. I have to learn something to keep pace with His Majesty, otherwise I will look like a pampered daughter. Silk flowers. Rong Yu was silent for a moment. The doctor has it? I'll ask Yan Shuang to get it for you. Tomorrow, Nan 11 said. It's too late, let the doctor rest. Rong Yu hummed and turned to take a shower. Nan 11 was leaning on the bedside alone, flipping through the book in her hand, but not reading a single word. She kept thinking about Rong Yu's poisoning in her previous life. Although she didn't know who was behind the poisoning, because she paid too little attention to Rong Yu in her previous life. When you dislike and hate someone, it's too late to hide from him, so how can you care about what happened to him? But it doesn't matter if she doesn't know. If she could understand everything in advance, she would be not a normal person but a half-immortal. In this life, she had to take precautions before they happened, and it would always be beneficial to learn some medicine and poison techniques. Although Rong Yu is the prince of the Tian family and holds great power, the higher he stands, the more dangers he faces from all directions. Under the seemingly peaceful court situation, there are actually hidden swords and swords everywhere. The more Nan 11 thought about it, the more she felt that Rong Yu was really a strong and powerful king. There were countless enemies waiting in the dark, but he could handle them with ease. As long as she could be strong in this life, he would be invincible. What are you thinking about? The crisp and clean scent mixed with a light fragrance came slowly, lingering on the nose, pulling Nan 11 back from deep thought. Thinking about how to protect you. Nan 11 raised her eyes and looked at him with raised eyebrows. Do you believe it? Rong Yu was wearing a white loose pajamas, which made his whole body a little softer and less noble and alienated in front of others during the day. Hearing Nan 11's words, he nodded, I believe it. Nan 11 moved inward, leaving enough space for him. Why don't you say I don't overestimate my capabilities? After all, she is a weak woman, and he is a strong warrior who can crush her to death with just a few fingers, the god of war of Zhou. She protects him. This sentence sounds like a joke. Rong Yu sat down next to her, held her hand and put it on his heart. You can protect my heart. Nan 11 felt numb for a moment, then coughed lightly and said, Your Majesty seems to be reticent, but he turns out to be good at talking about love. You don't like it? Rong Yu locked his black eyes on her and said in a low voice, If you don't like it, I won't say anything else in the future. Nan 11's hand was held by him, and she gently curled up her fingers to scratch his palm. I like to hear it, and I will say it more often in the future. Rong Yu was so tickled by her that he couldn't help but squeeze her slender and soft hand. Your Majesty, you don't find it strange at all that I suddenly changed my temperament in the past 2 days? Nan 11 narrowed her eyes and asked calmly, Do you think that I am deliberately acting with you, but in fact I am hiding some unknown conspiracy? What kind of conspiracy can you have? Rong Yu's voice was loose and leisurely, low and sweet. You didn't listen to your father's words, and you broke up with Gu Qingshu. Is this all just acting? Nan 11 was silent for a moment and raised her eyebrows playfully. What if it's just acting? Then I am willing to be plotted by you. Wrong. You looked at her face close at hand, his eyes slightly dark, and there seemed to be burning flames jumping under his eyes, but they quickly disappeared, and finally turned into a calm and soft color. The sky, it's getting late, go to sleep. Nan 11 hummed and slowly lay down on the bed. This was the first time that Rong Yu successfully occupied the position beside Nan 11. They slept together peacefully, warmly, and quietly. Even though he was focused and calm, he could still bring the most direct impact and satisfaction to the depths of his heart. It was late at night. The dark night was pitch dark. Qing Yang, who was kneeling on the ground, saw that the lights in the hall were off, and his prince did not come out of the hall. He couldn't help but muttered in a low voice, "I'm right, right? It's really a done deal." "You still dare to talk?" Yin Yu rested her head on the tree branches and looked down at him. "Do you want me to tell the prince tomorrow that you violated the ban and spoke?" Qing Yang's legs hurt from kneeling, and he adjusted his posture slightly. "Yin Yu, Yin Chuang, can I be lazy for a while? Can you pretend you didn't see it?" "Okay." Yin Yu didn't care. "If you are not afraid of being punished for 10 more hours, just be lazy. Do you think there are only 3 of them outside Zhaochen Hall? Where's your brain?" Qing Yang knelt down resignedly, looked up at the sky, and felt that 3 hours was really unbearable. He couldn't talk in the long night. His master was happily sleeping with the beauty in his arms, but he was kneeling outside in misery. Alas! Window. Tabula equals window. Tabula. Tabula.push, mode, thumbs feed -01, container, tabula below article feed, placement, below article feed, target. Type, mix. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 93. There were a lot of people to deal with in the past 2 days after she woke up, and a lot of things happened. Nan 11 couldn't help but want to be quiet for 2 days, so she stayed at the Prince Regent's mansion for the next few days without going out, admiring flowers every day, sipping tea, studying medical skills, and living a leisurely and comfortable life. On the morning of March 16, Princess Bailing sent an invitation, inviting Nan 11 to go to Kingian Tower after noon to listen to a play. Nan 11 thought for a while and asked someone to reply. Kingian Tower is the most famous theater in the imperial capital. The main stage in the building is a beautiful young man named Fukin who is only 19 years old. Not only is he gifted with a good voice, but he also has an exceptionally soft appearance. He has the appearance of a boy and a girl, and his face is putting on makeup and a water-sleeved costume. She can charm all the young men and girls in the imperial capital. Regardless of whether they are young gentlemen or girls, or whether they are wealthy men, 8 out of 10 people who go to the theater are there for this floating prince. People are born into different categories. The status of an actor like Fukin is almost considered the lowest in a place like the imperial capital. Although he has a skill to make a living, and it is indeed sought after by rich young men and noble ladies, in the end he is just an actor. Courtesans in brothels and stage pillars in theaters all sound very glamorous, but in the eyes of those nobles, they are actually just playthings. So this Mr. Fukin didn't have very good luck in his previous life. It's not that Nan 11 pays much attention to this person. In fact, she has never met this person at all. The reason why we know about him is because of a scandal that caused a sensation in the imperial capital. During the more than a year when she was imprisoned in the Prince Regent's mansion in her previous life, a lot of things happened in the imperial city, and this incident that happened to Master Fukin was the most favorite thing to discuss after dinner. Fengming young Master Fukin in the imperial capital has become the current male favorite of the King of Qi. At that time, all the noble families in the entire imperial city were excited. Anyone who likes to listen to Fukin's opera and is dazzled by his peerless elegance on stage wearing a water-sleeved costume can't help but feel unfair to him, feeling that King Chi used his power to force Fukin into the palace. Although Nan 11 and Mr. Fukin had never met, they felt the same pity for this man when they heard about this incident, because she felt that Mr. Fukin was in a similar situation to her, as they were both weaklings who were kidnapped into the house by the powerful. As for whether the people discussing this matter do so out of disdain for the wealthy and powerful, or because they feel the grapes are sour because they cannot eat the grapes, only they themselves know. However, the final outcome of this matter was beyond everyone's expectations. The heated discussion disappeared overnight, and no one dared to mention a word. Because the king of Qi who kidnapped Fukin into the palace was brutally beheaded by Master Fukin, and the bodies were separated into different families. This incident shocked the entire imperial capital. Even the emperor, who did not have a good relationship with King Qi, was furious about this incident. He believed that this was a challenge to the authority of the royal family. It was so audacious and unforgivable. The imperial edict ordered the imperial guards to immediately arrest Fukin and bring him to justice. However, after killing King Qi, young Master Fukin disappeared from the imperial capital. No matter how furious the emperor repeatedly issued orders to investigate and arrest him, no trace of him could be found. The majestic Prince Qi's palace couldn't even stand a male favorite. The Prince of Qi took advantage of the situation and played with the broken sleeves, but ended up dying at the hands of his male favorite. What could be more humiliating to the royal family than such a scandal? The Emperor Leiting was furious, but the minister who took over the errand failed to do the job well. The emperor became even more angry, and King Ian Tower bore the brunt of the emperor's anger. But strangely, all the actors in the King Ian building, including the boss, disappeared overnight. By the time the imperial army went to fetch them according to the order, the King Ian building was already empty. Nan 11 is not sure what happened next. The matter later became a taboo topic. In addition, no clues about Mr. Fukin were found. Over time, this matter seemed to have become an unsolved case. After receiving a post from Princess Bailing today, Nan 11 remembered this incident in her past life, and she couldn't help but have the idea of meeting this young Master Fukin. During lunch, she told Rong Yu that Princess Bailing invited her to listen to the play. Rong Yu didn't have any special reaction after hearing this. He only said, "King Ian Tower is a mixed bag, don't let Yunyu and Yunya Shuang takes half a step away from you." Nan 11 was silent for a moment and couldn't help but raise her eyebrows. "Your Majesty's reaction is not right." "Not quite right?" Rong Yu looked at her with some confusion. "I heard that Mr. Fukin from King Ian Tower is an extremely beautiful actor. His water-sleeved costume is unparalleled and dazzles all living beings. Many noble ladies in the imperial capital are obsessed with him." Nan 11 looked at him with a smile. "Your Highness is not worried about me being raped by him?" Attracted by her beauty and grace, and then fell in love with someone else. Rong Yu was silent for a moment and said in a strange tone, "Fu Chen, I have someone I like." "Ah." Nan 11 was surprised. How does the prince know? What surprised her was not whether Fukin had someone he liked. After all, people in this world, no matter men, women, old or young, were all people with different emotions and desires. It was normal to have someone they liked. What's strange to her is that Rong Yu seems to know this Mr. Fukin very well. "We have had contact before." He spoke concisely, as if he did not intend to explain in detail. "If you like to hear him sing, you can keep in touch with him in the future, or you can ask him to come to the palace to sing for you." Nan 11 was stunned and subconsciously said, "Is the prince so generous?" Rong Yu pursed his lips and looked at her. "Do you want me to be selfish and lock you in the palace, and from now on you will not be able to leave or take a step forward?" "Of course not. Besides women, there are only men in this world." Rong Yu said. "Those women from aristocratic families are not friendly to you, so you don't have to pay attention to them." There is no harm in making friends from other aspects. Nan 11 pondered for a moment. Although making friends does not depend on background, Rong Yu would never let her associate with a man she had never seen for no reason, and this man was an actor. Unless he already had a clue in his heart and knew this person very well. If that was the case, did Rong Yu help in the previous life when Master Fukin was taken to the Prince of Qi's mansion and killed the Prince of Qi and got away safely not long after? The Regent King has all kinds of means. If he wants to help someone get away, it would be easy. The Imperial Guards may turn the Imperial City upside down and still not be able to find the person. But, if it was really him who helped, what would be his relationship with Master Fukin? If he was not involved, why did he know Master Fukin so well? Nan 11's curiosity was completely aroused. After lunch, she returned to the bedroom, changed into simple clothes, and went out. She got on the carriage and took Yin Yu and Yin Shuang to Qingyan Tower. Princess Bailing agreed to wait for her in the Tianzi-shaped private room in Qingyan Tower. Window. Tabula equals window. Tabula. Tabula.push, mode, thumbs feed -01, container, tabula below article thumbnail -300x250, placement, below article thumbnail -300x250, target. Type, mix. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 94. After entering the Qingyan building, Nan 11 quickly arrived at the private room at Tianzi No. 1 under the guidance of the theater boy. After knocking on the door and entering, Princess Bailing sat in front of the pear tree bench near the window and waved to her, "Come here first and sit down for a cup of tea. Mr. Fukin will be on stage soon." There were two maids sitting behind her, their eyebrows lowered and their eyes downcast, looking respectful. "Why did you suddenly think of coming to the theater?" Nan 11 walked over and said as if making small talk, "Have you often come here before?" "There are fewer people coming this year." Lin Jie smiled lightly, with a hint of sigh in his smile. "I came here often the year before last, and I spent a lot of money on Mr. Fukin. Then something happened at home, and I stayed in the house for a whole year without going out." Nan 11 knew what happened in the eldest princess's mansion, and of course she also knew why Princess Bailing didn't go out for a year. There was no special expression on her face. Nan 11 just asked casually, "How is your father, Consort Lin, doing lately?" Lin Jie picked up a cup of tea and handed it to her, and said calmly, "It's rare that you still remember that I have a father. Since something happened to the Lin family last year, no one from the powerful clansmen in the imperial capital or my close friends dared to mention it in front of me. Regarding my father's affairs, my father's existence seems to have become a taboo." At this point, she laughed at herself, but it is indeed a taboo. "They don't dare to mention it not because they are afraid of making me sad, but because they are worried about offending the king and getting into trouble. The Lin clan was exterminated by the emperor's decree. It took a long time for the smell of blood in the air to slowly dissipate. In just 1 year, I am afraid that most people in the imperial capital have not forgotten the disaster brought about by the annihilation of the family of fear." Nan 11 didn't speak for a while. Maybe she didn't know what to say. In the face of hundreds of lives, all the words of comfort seemed too pale and useless. Since she was not familiar with Lin's consort, she naturally had no way of evaluating Lin's consort. However, the demise of the Lin family was not due to any serious crime, but simply because they took the wrong position in the battle for the heir. This situation has existed since ancient times, and although it is tragic, it is never unusual. On the surface, those people are envious of my beauty, envious of the emperor's love for me, and are afraid of the majesty of the eldest princess's palace, but secretly they laugh at me for having a father who is a criminal." Lin Jie held the teacup with a smile on her face. With a few sneers, "They are all a group of hypocritical people, extremely disgusting. If you don't like it, you don't have to force yourself to make concessions with them," Nan 11 said calmly. A person's lifespan is only a few decades, so it's better to be happy. Be happy? Lingiadeo, my father will never be happy again in his life. Nan 11 was silent. Forget it, let's not talk about this. Lingia raised a smile and looked up at Nan 11, are you serious about your marriage to the emperor's uncle? I have always heard that the regent forced you to enter the regent's palace willingly. It was true that I was not willing before, but now I have changed my mind. Nan 11 smiled lightly, people go to higher places, and water flows to lower places. The regent put a tall branch like this in front of me for me to climb. I can refuse. Lingia frowned when he heard this, are you really trying to climb a high tree? You don't believe it? It's true that I don't quite believe it. Lingia sighed, sometimes I find it quite strange. The harder someone denies it, the more it seems like he's trying to cover it up. The more openly he admits it, like you, the more people don't want to believe it easily. Nan 11 smiled and said, maybe I wasn't sincere enough. Lingia chuckled, although I don't know what your attitude is towards your uncle, I seem to know why your uncle is attracted to you. Because Nan 11 is really different from those so-called rich ladies from famous and powerful families. Of course, benevolent people have different opinions and wise people have different opinions. In the eyes of those powerful people, they feel that a straightforward person like Nan 11 cannot be put on the stage. Especially Nan 11's background. Those who were jealous of Nan 11 being rich and favored by the regent couldn't find any other point to attack, so naturally they could only make a fuss about her origins. But in fact, even if she has a mother who is a merchant, Nan 11 is still the daughter of a first-class prime minister and the only legitimate daughter in the prime minister's house. This is a fact that no one can change. Jealousy and aggression won't help. But you have to be careful in the future. Lingia frowned slightly, many people have noticed you now. There are so many treacherous things in the court, and there are so many conspiracies. The emperor is originally afraid of the regent's power and regards the regent as a thorn in his side. I wish I could get rid of you quickly. You openly offended the queen in the palace a few days ago. They are afraid of doing anything because of the regent's reputation, but they definitely have grudges in their hearts. Nan 11 picked up the teacup, put it to her lips and took a sip. I know. Aren't you worried? What's there to worry about? Nan 11 smiled lightly, soldiers will stop us, and water will cover us. Worrying can't solve the problem. Lingia nodded when he heard this, you are right. Just at this moment, there was a burst of cheers outside, and Lingia was refreshed, Master Fukin is on stage. After saying that, he stood up neatly and walked to the window. He opened the window and saw a beautiful man in water sleeves on the stage. Nan 11, come here and take a look. Nan 11 stood up and walked to the window, followed her gaze to the stage set up in the wide courtyard, and then her eyes narrowed slightly. A tall and slender young man stood on the stage. The boy's face is indeed extremely beautiful, with a pair of slightly upturned slender phoenix eyes that are soul-stirring, a straight nose bridge, and rosy thin lips that make people fantasize. His deep black pupils seem to be integrated with the light and shadow that overlooks the myriad, and even when he is not smiling, he exudes an almost enchanting charm. Maybe because Nan 11 and Lingia are standing a little far away, from this perspective, the boy's facial features are soft and beautiful, like light smoke and mist, revealing a layer of hazy beauty like ink painting. The so-called peerless beauty is really well deserved. Is he the Fukin master? Lingia nodded, don't look at his young age, he has been on stage for 6 years and has been famous for 6 years. 6 years of fame, it can be seen that this master has some real skills in addition to his beauty. Doesn't he need to put on makeup when he sings? Nan 11 looked at Master Fukin's face, he seems to dress differently from other actors. He doesn't like heavy makeup. He usually only puts on a light layer of makeup before going on stage. Lingia explained, Master Fukin has a bad temper. He always does what he wants and doesn't give face to anyone. Don't give face to anyone? Nan 11 thought about it. How could such a frivolous and arrogant person agree to become a male favorite in the Prince Chi's mansion in his previous life? Now thinking about the death of the Prince Chi, Nan 11 understood more and more that nothing can be judged by appearance. What song will Master Fukin sing today? Someone in the audience shouted. Let's sing the fairy couple. Master Fukin is a man, not a woman dressed as a man. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 95. The people below are all shouting. Lin Jia leaned against the carved window and said casually, young Master Fukin has a weird temperament. He never likes to sing these love songs. It's useless even if they scream to break their throats. Nan 11 was slightly surprised. Is his temper really that bad? Lin Jia nodded. But he is just an opera singer. How could he be so bold to offend these dignitaries? When Nan 11 spoke, her eyes fell on the noisy courtyard. The seats of the guests under the stage are also divided into seniority and inferiority. The closer to the stage, the higher the status. Even those guests sitting in the last row are by no means ordinary common people. The Kingian building has a great reputation. It is the largest theater in the imperial capital, and its consumption is naturally high. Those who are qualified to enter and exit this place are either powerful or rich. Mr. Fukin dares to have a bad temper in front of these people? Probably he has some background, Lin Jia said. As for what force is behind it, I don't know. Anyway, he has encountered a lot of things in the past few years since he became famous. Look at which of the guests here today has a low status. Really? There are some dignitaries in the imperial capital who look good on the surface, but secretly have some unknown habits. Mr. Fukin is so beautiful. Do you think no one has any thoughts about him in the past few years? When Nan 11 heard this, her eyes fell on Fu Chen's face, which was more beautiful than that of a woman. Thinking about what Rong Yu said during lunch, she couldn't help but think in her heart, could it be that this young master's backer is the regent Rong Yu? If this is the case, then what happened to him in his previous life when he was forcibly taken to the palace by King Qi to become a male favorite? Assassinate the king of Qi on the order of the regent? But Rong Yu seemed to have no reason to kill King Qi, and it would be easy for him to kill King Qi, without anyone else taking action. Nan 11 couldn't figure it out for a moment. Can I sing the match by myself? A cold and melodious voice sounded on the stage, and Mr. Fukin said casually, what do you want me to sing, and what do you listen to? How come there are so many demands? The guest who just started making noises probably knew his temper. He was not angry when he heard the sentence, but became more and more enthusiastic. It's boring to sing alone. Mr. Fukin is so beautiful that he deserves to have a beauty sing with him. Isn't that right? In the Kingian building, are there many beautiful beauties? Fukin glanced at the speaker and smiled lightly. My appearance is not beautiful enough. As soon as the sentence came out, there was naturally a burst of cheers from below. Nan 11 looked at the table in silence. Those men who usually claimed to be elegant and elegant were completely demeanor because of Fukin's words. Especially a few middle-aged men in the back row screamed loudly. They were all praising Mr. Fukin's unparalleled beauty. This feeling does not feel like coming to listen to a play, but more like pursuing an warren in a brothel, showing off one's ugliness. On the other hand, the young gentleman sitting in the front row looked somewhat gentlemanly. Not knowing what suddenly occurred to her, Nan 11 turned to look at Lin Jia. I see that all the guests at the table are men. Is it to avoid suspicion that women can reserve a private room to listen to the show? Lin Jia nodded. This is also the rule of Kingian House. I heard that it was decided by Mr. Fukin. The private room is only for women. After a pause, but private rooms are expensive, and you have to charge whatever you want. Not just anyone can come if they want to. Nan 11 nodded, secretly thinking that Mr. Fukin seemed to be a very principled person. I am originally a laid-back person from Wolongong. The sun's heavenly voice sounded on the stage, and everyone present felt as if their throats were being strangled, and the noise and shouting stopped abruptly. Nan 11 looked intently. Mr. Fukin holds Zhujiang's feather fan in his hand. He is handsome, casual, and indifferent, and his long voice reveals a bit of uninhibitedness, discussing yin and yang. It's like turning the palm of your hand, bayoneting the world. The late emperor, I'm going to Nanyang to march in person, ah 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 ah. Sing beautifully, Lin Jia whispered, and then said mysteriously, but compared to listening to him sing, I actually like his face better. Nan 11 turned her eyes after hearing this. Do you like his face? Of course, Lin Jia pointed out, look at all the people here, who are not here because of Mr. Fukin's appearance. How many of them are actually here to listen to the show? Nan 11 frowned. Didn't I just say that, despite the seemingly glorious appearance of those powerful people, they may have some shameful hobbies in private? Lin Jia sneered. My mother, the noble eldest princess, once beat this Fukin young master's idea. What? Nan 11 was stunned. Forget it, Lin Jia didn't bother to say more. Family scandals should not be made public. Nan 11 frowned and remained silent. Beneath the superficial splendor, there has always been hidden a lot of filth and filth. The mother and daughter in the eldest princess's palace were estranged, the husband and wife turned against each other, and the eldest princess acted recklessly while taking advantage of her power. These are actually just the tip of the iceberg of the shameful things under the imperial power. Nothing unusual. The eldest princess had an idea for young Master Fukin, but obviously failed to do so. Although Nan 11 didn't know when this happened, she had never heard of the eldest princess getting angry because of it. So in the previous life, young Master Fukin does being forced into Prince Chi's mansion have anything to do with her? Nan 11 chuckled somewhat self-deprecatingly. There is no shortage of dark things in the world, but things that happen to others always seem to have nothing to do with them. No one dares to care about what happens in a wealthy family, so many dark things are buried deep in the world. In the deep house, no one cares about it for a long time. King Chi is here. Along with this high-pitched singing, a chaotic sound of footsteps sounded outside the theater, interrupting the guests who were listening to the opera. Everyone turned their heads to look, and some people had already stood up and saluted involuntarily. However, the Fukin Gongzi who was singing on the stage was not affected at all, and was still singing attentively, East-West War, North-South Suppression. Nan 11 looked at the entrance of the theater, and a man in a brocade robe came in with guards. Her solemn eyes fell on the stage, and she listened to the gentle singing of the beautiful young man without saying a word. Why did the King of Chi suddenly come to the theater? Lin Jia's face changed slightly, and his brows were tightly furrowed. I don't think I heard that he also likes to listen to opera before. Nan 11 knew the purpose of the King of Chi's sudden visit here. However, compared with the result she had known in her previous life, she actually wanted to see how the Fukin Gongzi would deal with such a person. After all, thinking about her past life and this life, and considering the temperament of this young man, Nan 11 knew that he was probably not a master who would let herself suffer. Listening to the opera today is secondary. Nan 11 smiled faintly, turned around and took a cup of tea from the table. Watching the opera is the main thing. Lin Jia was puzzled. What do you mean? Did you know that the King of Chi would come? Nan 11 shook her head. I'm not a master of strategists. Window. Tabula equals window. Tabula. Tabula.push, mode, thumbs feed -01, container, tabula below article thumbnail -300x250, placement, below article thumbnail -300x250, target. Type, mix. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 96. While Nan 11 was listening to a play in the theater, his father was busy reuniting his family. It will be my 40th birthday in a few days. I would like to go into the house with you or to pay my respects to my birthday Pinpin Ting Ting. A woman in an aqua smoky skirt, sat on one side with a somewhat charming look on her face. Smile, although she is already in her early 30s, she is dressed like a girl who has not yet left the court. Yu has grown so old that she has not been able to call her daddy openly. As a mother, I feel sad when I think about it. Nan Yu, who was sitting next to her, wiped her tears with a handkerchief. Her face was still a little pale after recovering from a serious illness. Mom, don't be too sad. I know Dad loves us, but he also has his helplessness. After all, the eldest sister is the Prime Minister's mansion. My legitimate daughter, if she doesn't agree, I. As he said this, he couldn't help but his eyes turned red. After being kicked by the regent last time, she had been raised in Gu Qingshu's house for so many days, and the baby in her belly also fell out. Nanyu never dared to go out, for fear of hearing the rumors outside. She didn't want to hear the harsh comments. Even Gu Qingshu's cousin ridiculed her. Nanyu couldn't swallow this breath. Although she still couldn't figure out why Nan 11 framed her. She was obviously so stupid before, but becoming the Prime Minister and recognizing her ancestors was something she had to do. Obviously she was also her father's daughter. Why can't you enjoy the honor of the Prime Minister's mansion? This matter has indeed wronged you and my wife, but don't worry, I will take you into the house sooner or later. Nan Xingzi felt sorry for Nan Yu's understanding, and gently patted Mrs. Liu's hand. This birthday May, it's just an opportunity. His 40th birthday is half a month away. Nan Xingzi is a high-ranking Prime Minister, and his birthday is 40, so his birthday will naturally be more grand. Moreover, the Emperor is paying high attention to him now. As expected, he will also attend a banquet to celebrate his birthday. When the time comes, Nan Xingzi can take the opportunity to propose the Lu family as a concubine and bring the mother and daughter into the house together. With the Emperor's decree, even Mrs. Nan and Nan 11 can't say anything more. He told Mrs. Lu and Nanyu his inner plan, and then said calmly, I will wrong you for the time being. After entering the mansion, I will become the aunt of the 7th room. From now on, you will have a justifiable identity, the second lady of the Prime Minister's palace. From then on, she will be the second lady of the Prime Minister's palace with face. There is no need to be called the daughter of an outsider. Hearing this, Nanyu nodded happily. I will respect my aunt well, listen to my aunt and eldest sister, and never cause trouble for them. Nan Xingzi listened to her sweet words and thought about the grievances he and she had suffered outside over the years, all because of the Yuan family. Nan Xingzi felt angry and a little bit jealous of the Lu family and her daughter. Heartbroken and guilty. Sure enough, what kind of mother brings up what kind of daughter? Although Mrs. Lu was born in a brothel, she is weak in heart, clean and self-loving, and is a lotus flower that emerges from the mud but remains unstained. Her daughter Nanyu is just like her mother, both weak and strong. Never he held grudges against his father and never complained. In contrast, Yuan, who was born as a merchant, is really an unattractive woman with no elegance at all. The daughter she taught also does not know how to consider others at all. Both mother and daughter are very selfish. No wonder people in the world say that you should marry a virtuous wife. There is indeed a certain truth to it. A virtuous wife can bring peace to the family, but marrying a wife who has no tolerance for others will only cause chaos in the family. When Nan Xingzi thought that he no longer had so much freedom with money recently, and that Aunt Li was crying in front of him all day about Yuan's stinginess, he felt so choked up that he couldn't breathe, and wished he could divorce Yuan immediately. But Ms. Lu was thinking in her mind at this moment, no matter what grievances she felt, as long as she could successfully enter the Prime Minister's house, it would not be in vain for her to endure the grievances for so many years. As long as she enters the Prime Minister's house, she will not have the final say on the Nan family's back house in the future? What qualifications does Yuan's merchant girl who smells like copper have to compete with her? Mrs. Lu has many means to turn Nan 11's legitimate daughter into an abandoned daughter. Not only that, she also wants to get all the property in Mrs. Nan's hands as compensation to make up for the grievances she has suffered over the years and the impact of being the daughter of a foreign wife on Yuer. Of harm. There's one more thing, Nanyu said timidly, a little aggrievedly. I was feeling unwell a few days ago and stayed at home without going out, so I didn't know about the rumors that were spreading outside. Father, I have never hurt my sister, nor have I ever wanted to assassinate her. This must be a misunderstanding. I know Nan Xingzi felt sorry for the injustice she had suffered, and his tone became more and more guilty. I will find a way to compensate you in the future. Those things are in the past, so you don't have to take it to heart. But Nan Yu bit her lip. If eldest sister continues to misunderstand me, how should I explain it? When Nan 11 was mentioned, Nan Xingzi couldn't help but frown. Thinking of what he said in the study that night, he had no idea why Nan 11 suddenly became so rebellious. Her whole heart was tied to the regent. He didn't even listen to what his father said. It's really a piece of cake. Don't worry about her, he said coldly. From now on, you can live your own lives, there is no need to please her. Nan Yu bit her lip, trying to say that she didn't want to please Nan 11, but after all, Nan 11 was the direct daughter of the Prime Minister's house, and Mrs. Nan was in charge of the family. After she entered the house, she had to pay for her daily food and clothing, so she didn't want to please them. Can it be done? Unless her mother Lu can get the power of running the family. However, looking at Nan Xingzi's unhappy expression at this time, Nan Yu suppressed her inner thoughts and said nothing. She only nodded obediently. Well, Yuer listens to daddy. As she said that, she raised her eyes to look at Mrs. Lu, and the mother and daughter exchanged a knowing look. There is no coincidence in the world. The house that Nan Xingzi bought for Lu is not big, nor is it in a prosperous area. It is not very eye-catching, but it is not far from Qingyan Tower. Lu was born in a brothel. Although she had been redeemed for many years, she has a good tune and likes to listen to operas, so she will come to Qingyan Tower to listen to a piece when she is interested. As for the Fukan Gongzi who is sought after by thousands of people, she has no interest in him. No matter how beautiful an actor is, he can't bring her wealth and glory. Moreover, once someone else gets the handle, it will be difficult for Nan Xingzi to explain. After a reunion with Nan Xingzi in the house at noon, talking about personal matters and making love in bed, Nan Xingzi returned to the Xiongfu. Lu dressed herself up carefully and said to Nanyu, Mother will take you to Qingyan Tower to listen to an opera today. Maybe you can meet a noble person. Mother Nanyu shook her arm shyly. What noble person? I just like Brother Qingshu, not other noble people. She has already committed herself to Gu Qingshu, so how can she be with others? If the noble person knew that she was not a virgin, the consequences would be disastrous. Nanyu felt that wealth and honor were important, but life was more important. Window. Tabula equals window. Tabula. Tabula.push, mode, thumbspeed -01, container, tabula below article thumbnail -300x250, placement, below article thumbnail -300x250, target. Type, mix. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 97. Gu Qingshu, Mrs. Lu frowned. Who is he? Nan 11 is blind, so are you blind? Nan Yu pursed her lips and protested dissatisfied, Mother. Although Gu Qingshu has the title of #1 scholar, he is from a low background and there is no future with him. Mrs. Lu obviously looked down on Gu Qingshu. The reason why I asked you to compromise with him before was to get closer to Nan 11. Now that Nan 11 is making trouble with him, bye-bye, why are you nagging him? Nan Yu moved her lips, wanting to say something but not daring to speak. If her mother knew that she and Gu Qingshu not only had a physical relationship, but also had children, she would probably be furious, right? Although the child is gone, she is no longer innocent. Who else can she marry in this life besides Gu Qingshu? Nan Yu caressed her belly. She didn't have any feelings for this child who unexpectedly appeared and was aborted. But at this moment, she couldn't help but wonder, if she had not lost her virginity to Gu Qingshu, would she really have a chance to marry a better one? Husband. When King Qi arrived, the owner of Qingyan Tower personally welcomed him out. After saluting and greeting him, he led him to a wing in the lobby in accordance with King Qi's wishes. What is King Qi doing? Lin Jie frowned and looked puzzled as King Qi and his entourage walked into the hall. I never heard that he likes to listen to operas before. Nan 11 stood in front of the window, staring silently at the stage outside, and said in a calm tone, "Don't worry, just watch the show in peace." Lin Jie turned to look at her suspiciously, feeling that her calm and composed appearance at this time was somewhat similar to that of the regent. Both of them had the aura of not changing their expression even when a mountain collapsed, but Nan 11 did not have the cold and coercive power of the regent. That's all. The guests at the banquet were a little commotion due to the sudden arrival of King Qi, but Mr. Fukin on the stage seemed as if nothing had happened. He calmly finished singing a verse, waving his feather fan lightly, and his expression and demeanor were full of free and easy indifference. After the song was sung, the long lingering sound gradually faded away, and King Qi's guards pushed through the crowd and came over. My King Qi has invited Mr. Fukin. More than a dozen guards stood around the stage, their aura naturally intimidating. Please come in and talk to Mr. Fukin. The guests on the stage naturally looked at each other for a while, with suspicion in their hearts. King Qi suddenly came to Qingyan Tower tonight. What was his purpose? Are you here for Mr. Fukin? Young Master Fukin has done nothing, right? Lin Jie frowned, looking at the posture of the palace guards. They really came here for young Master Fukin. Nan 11 said calmly, Yin's Huang, go down and take a look. Since entering the private room, Yin's Huang has stood behind the screen like an invisible person, making her presence almost invisible. At this time, after hearing Nan 11's instructions, she showed up to take the order. Yes. Lin Jie turned her head and silently stared at her slim but tall back. After a moment, she turned to look at Yin Yu, who was standing next to Nan 11. Are these two people given to you by the regent? Nan 11 nodded. The imperial uncle is so kind to you. She called this name calmly, but Nan 11 always had a strange feeling when hearing it, as if Rong Yu was already an old man who was over 70 years old. Shaking her head, she smiled slightly and said, I think so too. I wonder why your prince is looking for me. Mr. Fukin shook the feather fan in his hand. His soft and beautiful face showed no trace of fear. He still looked free and relaxed, and his voice was also lazy. I am singing an opera. As expected of Mr. Fukin, Lin Jie smiled. He is not afraid of the powerful and has a strong character. Nan 11 raised her eyebrows. Not afraid of the powerful and dignified? What would you think if you knew that this young Master Fukin, who was not afraid of the powerful, dared to kill even the prince, and could escape safely even though the emperor had no choice but to do anything? My prince is here to invite you in person to give you face. You'd better be obedient, the guard leader said in a tough and arrogant tone. Don't be ignorant of good and evil. The air at the table was slightly condensed, and the guests seemed a little confused about this sudden scene. However, these guards were under the orders of King Qi. Who among the people present dared to interfere? Who is King Qi? The fourth brother of the current emperor was once one of the princes competing for the throne. Although he did not ascend to the throne as he wished in the end, the power of the palace is still there. Whether it is the ministers of the court or the generals of the imperial army, they all have his confidence. Rong Chuye, who was also a legitimate prince, had been taken care of by the current emperor long ago. The king of Qi was still safe and sound for the time being, relying on the control of the emperor by the central court and his uncle's family. The power of the Qi palace cannot be underestimated, or it can be said that the current power of the princes who once participated in the seizure of the heir cannot be underestimated. The emperor has only been on the throne for a short time. It is not yet known how many of these emperor brothers will be left in the future. No one knows whether these princes can unseat the current emperor. But King Qi is narrow-minded and cruel. For now, no one listening to the show tonight dares to offend him. The atmosphere in the theater was tense for a moment. While everyone was silent, they saw Mr. Fukin smile casually, but without saying anything, he turned around and walked out from the backstage, and followed the guards of Prince Qi's mansion to the lobby. The performance on the stage did not end because of this, and soon two beautifully dressed young men and women came out. The woman was wearing a skirt, and the man was dressed as a scholar. In response to everyone's request, the two performed a piece of the Match of Heaven for the guests. At this moment, a familiar figure appeared in Nan 11's sight. Mrs. Lu usually came to King Ian Pavilion in the private room number 3. When she arrived at King Ian Pavilion, she was familiar with the familiar route. In order to avoid the sight of everyone, she went directly to the second floor from the stone steps beside the door and walked along the corridor on the second floor to number 3. Go to the elegant room. Although the guests sitting in the spacious courtyard on the first floor were all listening to the play attentively and no one noticed them, Linjia and Nan 11, who were standing at the window of the private room number 1, saw the mother and daughter. Linjia didn't know Mrs. Lu and Nan Yu. Given her status, it was normal for her to have never seen the mother and daughter, so she didn't take it to heart at all. She just thought it was some official wife who brought her daughter to the opera. However, when Nan 11 saw Nan Yu, she narrowed her eyes slightly. Yin Yu. Girl. Let someone ask. Yes. Yunyu accepted the order, turned around and walked out. Of course, the inquiry is not really in person, but sending someone to check on the situation of the mother and daughter. There has been no news from Nan Yu in the past 2 days. Nan 11 thought she was recuperating in the Gu mansion, but she didn't expect to meet them here tonight. They were really enemies. Yunyu quickly brought a piece of news, not because she checked quickly, but because of a coincidence. The man responsible for keeping an eye on Nan Xiang told her the detailed story. The Prime Minister went to the Lu family's villa at noon. I heard that the family of 3 also had a reunion dinner. The father was kind and the daughter was filial, which was heartwarming and touching. The Prime Minister and Mrs. Lu are really close to each other. They can't wait to get Mrs. Lu into the palace and give them a legitimate identity as mother and daughter. They even plan to use the birthday banquet to ask the emperor for a marriage. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 98. After listening to Yunyu's report, Linjia realized the identities of the mother and daughter. She couldn't help but be surprised. Nan 11, those 2 people, are your father's concubine and daughter raised outside. Nan 11 nodded. Is your father confused? She frowned. How can a dignified prime minister of a country do things so imprudently? Raising a concubine in a grand manner is not just a matter of bringing in a concubine and daughter who are not worthy of publicity. Nan 11 said calmly, this is called love and justice. What kind of friendship? Linjia said in a serious tone, obviously feeling incredible about such behavior. Xiang Nan did this, he didn't take Mrs. Nan and Yu, his legitimate daughter, seriously at all. He doesn't distinguish between legitimate concubine and concubine. Confusing dignity and inferiority, simply unworthy of being a prime minister. Seeing her angry look, Nan 11 smiled faintly. He wants what he wants, but it doesn't mean he can get it. Linjia was silent. After looking at the calm girl in front of her in silence for a moment, she said, are you not angry at all? Nan 11 raised her eyebrows. Why are you angry? Aren't you worried? Nan 11 shook her head. there's nothing to worry about. But he is your father. Nan 11 said, it's not important. Isn't it important? Lin Jie blinked and suddenly felt that he was stupid for not understanding what Nan 11 meant. Is she playing a riddle with herself? What the girl means is that no matter what Nan Xiang's plan is, it will not come true in the end, so there is no need to worry. Yin Yu explained in a crisp voice, father has no choice, but the girl can choose how to deal with this attitude. Father, since he is unkind, don't blame the girl for being unjust, so there is nothing to be angry about. As he said that, he added at the end, being angry with people who don't deserve it is just a waste of your energy. Lin Jie. Is Yin Yu the round worm in Nan 11's belly? Nan Xiang thought that through the emperor's golden mouth, Lu and Nan Yu could enter the palace smoothly, and there was a decree to do so. The madam and the girl would not dare to object, but he made a mistake. Lin Jie subconsciously asked, what miscalculation happened? Nan Xiang missed my prince. Yun Yu sneered, as long as the girl doesn't want the Lu family and her daughter to enter the palace, the prince will definitely be on the girl's side. How dare the emperor compete with my prince? Lin Jie was stunned. Yes, how could she forget? There is also the prince regent. Even if Nan Xiang took advantage of his birthday to seek an imperial edict from the emperor so that the Lu family and her daughter could smoothly enter the palace and recognize their ancestors, the emperor would definitely not do it if the regent said something that was not in line with the rules, even in front of so many courtiers and guests. Dare to challenge the regent. If this is the case, then not only Prime Minister Nan will be embarrassed, but the emperor will also feel embarrassed and angry. I am afraid that it will not end well for everyone, and the two culprits, the Lu family and her daughter, will have an even more difficult time in the future. When Lin Jie thought about this, she found that she was actually looking forward to such a scene. You can't kill a chicken with a bull's knife. Nan 11 smiled faintly, her eyebrows calm. Rong Yu doesn't need Rong Yu's help for novices like the Lu family and her daughter. Lin Jie was stunned when he heard this, with excitement on his face. You want to do it yourself? Of course you have to do it yourself. Nan 11 secretly thought that Nan Yu had done a lot of harm to her in her previous life. If she didn't do it herself, how could she let go of the hatred in her heart? What are you going to do? Nan 11 didn't say anything, and slowly returned to sit down in front of the long desk. What she was thinking in her mind was that all conspiracies and tricks were in vain in the face of absolute strength. Her mother said last time that Mrs. Lu was born in a brothel. In addition to having an extremely accurate eye for people, she was also able to endure the situation for more than 10 years without being famous or distinguished. Her patience alone was enough to be admired. Such women are not easy to deal with and need to be carefully guarded against. But in Nan 11's view, Liu's forbearance for more than 10 years has worn away all her patience. In the past, because Nan Xingzi had not yet reached the highest point, she could continue to endure it. There was a so-called belief in her heart that supported her, so she could not tolerate it. How uncomfortable it feels. But since the person she likes became the prime minister as she wished, Nan 11 can guarantee that when Lu goes to bed every night, she will dream about the glorious scenery after becoming the prime minister's wife. She can play tricks in the prime minister's backyard like a fish in water, and cooperate with her scumbag father to spoil his concubine and kill his wife, making the prime minister's house a mess. If Nan Xingzi delayed it for a whole day, her patience would become less. So compared to before, Lu is easier to deal with now. Girl Yin Chuang pushed open the door and entered with her usual indifferent tone. King Qi used force against young Master Fukin. Nan 11 raised her eyes, and the corners of her mouth raised a slight arc, as expected. I'll go over and take a look. Nan 11 stood up and turned to look at Lin Jie. It's not convenient for the princess to come forward, so just stay here and wait for me. After watching my hero save the beauty, let Mr. Fukin come over and sing for you alone. A song. Lin Jie was stunned. You want to go there in person? Nan 11 was silent for a moment, then nodded. She had not originally planned to go in person. Even if she only sent someone to rescue Mr. Fukin could still come in person. But she saw Lu and Nanyu, so she decided to go out in person. Otherwise, how to lure fish to the bait? I said just now that I want you to watch the show with peace of mind, and I still say the same thing now. Nan 11 smiled lightly, just stay here and wait to watch the show. Lin Jie thought for a while and was a little eager to give it a try. Actually, I really want to go out with you. Nan 11 said, King Chi is downstairs, it's not good for him to see you. There's nothing wrong with it. Lin Jie stood up and walked to her. Anyway, I'm young and ignorant, and I was spoiled by my mother. Even if something unpleasant happens later, no one dares to accuse me. Nan 11 chuckled upon hearing this. You really dare to be willful. What are you afraid of? Lin Jie had no scruples. With my mother protecting me, no one can do anything to me. After the Lin family was executed, her father lived in seclusion and was almost forgotten by others. Therefore, even if she did cause trouble outside, it would not be implicated in her father. At most, she would be scolded by the eldest princess after she returned. This was not good for Lin Jie. There will be other effects, and even if there are people who should worry about them. Nan 11 nodded, then let's go together. With that said, he lifted his feet and walked out. But when it comes to heroes saving beauties, Lin Jie frowned and asked her in a low voice, young Master Fukin is a man after all. Men and women are not close to each other. What if your story of heroes saving beauties comes to the ear of the regent? Not so good. She invited Nan 11 to the show. What if the regent becomes jealous and angers her? It doesn't matter, Nan 11 said. Wrong, you doesn't mind if I associate with Mr. Fukin. The author has something to say. How will Lu and Nanyu die? Who is Mr. Fukin, and what will happen after meeting Nan 11? To predict what will happen next, please listen to the explanation next time. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 99. Lin Jie thought he had misheard for a moment. The regent was so generous that he didn't mind Nan 11's relationship with a man who sang opera. Thinking back to the past, well, it's not really thinking back to the past, it's only been more than a month. When Rong Yu trapped Nan 11 in the regent's mansion, he didn't even let her see Gu Qingshu. It was said that Nan 11 quarreled with the regent every day, and Gu Qingshu went to the prime minister's mansion every day, as if he was very affectionate. Although outsiders had no way of knowing what Nan 11 talked about with the prime minister every time she went to the prime minister's mansion, one thing was certain: since Nan 11 stepped into the gate of the regent's mansion, Gu Qingshu never dared to enter the gate of the regent's mansion. There were many powerful people in the capital, and the royal family members were watching every move of the regent's mansion. Regarding the matter between the regent and the prime minister's daughter, some people were just watching the fun, while others found an opportunity from it, and even thought of a trick, waiting for the right time to put it into action. As a result, she did not expect Nan 11 to suddenly change her attitude and play the game of affection with the regent, which really caught people off guard and confused. Outsiders said that the regent was attracted by Nan 11's mother's money, but Lin Jie knew that the regent was different from Gu Qingshu, and even different from the current emperor and those princes. If he was a person who would play tricks on emotions, he would not have refused the prince's solicitation and show of goodwill, let alone stay out of the struggle for the throne. Using emotions as a bargaining chip to obtain the benefits you want may be something that any other man would do, but it would never happen to her little uncle. Lin Jie was actually quite curious about the relationship between the regent and Nan 11, but some questions could be left for later, and there were other things to do at this time. Following Nan 11 down the stairs and arriving at the lobby on the first floor, he saw the guards of King Chi standing outside the wing room, as if they regarded King Ian Tower as his own palace. Lin Jie walked over, with a somewhat unhappy tone. This princess was listening to the opera well, who was so ignorant that he called away Master Fukin and disturbed the pleasure of this princess and Miss Nan. The guards of the Chi Wang mansion all knew the little princess. Suddenly seeing her coming down from the second floor, everyone was shocked. The leading guard hurriedly stepped forward to greet. "Why is the little princess here?" "Why, I can't come here," Lin Jie sneered. "This princess would like to ask, what are you doing?" The guard smiled. "My prince has something to talk to Master Fukin." "Your prince is of noble status and high above, but he is willing to put down his status and talk to an actor." Lin Jie was surprised. The sun really rises from the west. The leader of the guard smiled embarrassedly. "Miss Nan and I want to go in for a while," Lin Jie said calmly. "You shouldn't stop us." "This." The guard looked embarrassed. "The prince has ordered that no one is allowed to go in." Lin Jie said angrily, "What if this princess must go in?" "Please forgive me, princess." The leader of the guard bowed. "I dare not disobey the prince's order." "It's okay for the little princess and I not to go in," Nan 11 said calmly. "Go in and help us call out Master Fukin, his play is not over yet." The guard glanced at Nan 11 and said nothing. "My girl is talking to you, are you deaf?" Yin Yu said coldly. "Do I need the regent to come and tell you personally that Miss Nan and the prince have already made an engagement, and she will become the regent princess soon, and her orders are the orders of my prince? Is this Miss Nan?" The guard's face changed, and he bowed his head in panic to apologize. "I didn't recognize the great man, please forgive me, Miss Nan." "No one will punish you," Yin Yu said coldly, regardless of whether he really didn't know her or pretended not to know her, "but if you continue to pretend to be deaf and dumb, my girl can't guarantee the consequences." The guard's expression changed, and his face was obviously hesitant. After being in a dilemma for a while, he finally said, "Please wait for the little princess and Miss Nan, I will report to my prince." "Go ahead." Lin Jie raised his chin. "By the way, tell the king of Qi that I have a crush on Master Fukin, and no one is allowed to hurt Master Fukin in the slightest, otherwise I will report to the emperor and let the emperor make the decision for me." "Yes, yes, I will report it to the prince truthfully." The leader of the guards was about to turn around and go in. Nan 11 said indifferently, "Yin Huang, you go with me." The leader of the guards was surprised. "Yi, Miss Nan, this." "Don't worry, Yin Shuang won't offend your prince." Nan 11 turned her eyes slightly, looking at the guards who were surrounding the door tightly, and there was no emotion in her voice. "Just now, the little princess said that Master Fu Chen was her favorite. I don't want anyone to hurt Master Fu Chen, otherwise don't blame me for telling the regent and letting the regent make the decision for me." The guard leader's face turned pale, and he dared not say anything immediately. He just nodded and did it resignedly. One threatened to ask the emperor to make the decision, and the other threatened to tell the regent. How could a small guard like him have the confidence to resist? If one of them didn't do it well, either his life would be in danger or his head would be chopped off. Yin Shuang stood behind him silently. When he opened the door and went in, he saw two warriors forcibly pressing Fu Chen to kneel on the ground. Suddenly, his figure flashed, and before the guard leader could speak, he rushed over and solved the two people at lightning speed. Bang! Bang! With two loud noises, one of the two warriors flew into the wall and fell down, vomiting blood, and fainted. The other flew into the table in front of King Qi, crushing the good table to pieces. King Qi's expression changed drastically, and he stood up in shock. There were two warriors standing next to King Qi. They were stunned when they saw this sudden scene. Then they reacted very quickly and stood in front of King Qi, staring at Yin Shuang with cold eyes. "Your Majesty, Your Majesty." The leader of the guard did not expect Yin Shuang to take action as soon as he said so. He stuttered in shock, outside, the little princess and Miss Nan from the eldest princess's mansion wanted to see Mr. Fukin, and, They also said no one is allowed to harm Mr. Fukin, otherwise, the emperor and the regent will have to make the decision. King Chi's face suddenly turned cold, presumptuous. Plop. The leader of the guard knelt down. Your Majesty, calm down. King Chi looked at Yinchuang, who was standing not far in front of him with cold eyes, and Yinchuang also looked at him expressionlessly. The two of them seemed to be competing to see who had better endurance, and no one spoke for a moment. Until Mr. Fukin, who was left standing aside, brushed his sleeves and said casually, "Which Nan girl wants to see me?" The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 100. Yinchuang turned her head and looked at him, her tone cold, the eldest lady of the Prime Minister's mansion. Fu Chen heard the words, and the action of brushing his sleeves paused slightly, then slowly raised his eyes to look at Yinchuang. Nan 11. Yinchuang nodded. A strange light flashed in Fu Chen's eyes, and he turned around and walked out without saying anything. What are you still standing there for? The king of Qi stared at his back coldly, his tone gloomy and angry. Take him down. Mr. Fu Chen ignored it, and of course he didn't need to pay attention to anything, because as soon as the king of Qi finished speaking, Yinchuang reached out in time to block the warrior's attack. The only three people left in the room quickly started fighting. The king of Qi's personal guards were highly skilled in martial arts, and Yinchuang was not weak at all. The three of them fought fiercely, and even the king of Qi was inevitably affected by the palm wind. Mr. Fu Chen walked out of the wing room smoothly and saw Nan 11 and Lin Jie standing outside. His eyes swept directly over the little princess and fell on Nan 11's delicate and calm face. Nan 11 certainly saw him. Master Fukin, she smiled faintly, are you okay? Fukin's lips slightly raised, and a smile appeared on his charming and handsome face, which made his eyebrows and eyes shine. Miss Nan is also here to listen to the opera today. Nan 11 nodded. Fukin thought about the skills of the girl just now, and he knew what was going on. I am deeply sorry for disturbing the interest of Miss Nan and the little princess. If the girls don't mind, I would like to sing a song for the two girls alone. Lin Jie exclaimed in surprise. Nan 11 hasn't spoken yet, and Master Fukin took the initiative to offer to sing for them alone? What does it mean? Okay, Nan 11 smiled faintly, the little princess and I have booked a tianzi-shaped private room on the second floor today. Master Fukin nodded and said, the little princess and Miss Nan go first. Lin Jie didn't react for a while, and followed Nan 11 back to the second floor in a daze. The lobby on the first floor had been surrounded by the guards of the Prince Qi's mansion. Even the boss and the star of King Ian building could not get close. Therefore, no one had come to ask questions since Lin Jie and Nan 11 came down. The three of them went up the stairs smoothly, but at the corner from the first floor to the second floor, they saw Nan Yu. Nan 11 had no surprise on her face, nor any other strange expression. Instead, Nan Yu seemed a little at a loss. Big sister. Nan 11 glanced at her calmly, you are here too. Nan Yu bit her lip uneasily. I am not interested in your affairs, Nan 11 said calmly, you don't have to explain your whereabouts to me. Leaving this sentence, she walked past her without stopping at all, and turned around and walked towards the tianzi-shaped private room. Nan Yu's face froze instantly. Lin Jie naturally would not pay attention to a concubine's daughter who was not presentable, and did not even give her a glance, and walked away calmly with Nan 11. Nan Yu looked at Master Fukin, who followed closely behind the two people, lowered her eyebrows and said, Master. Even though he was a pillar of the theater, Master Fukin never deliberately treated guests rudely. However, when he saw this girl with the same surname Nan, his attitude was particularly cold and distant. He didn't even nod and passed by her. Nan Yu stood stiffly in the distance, her hands clenched tightly. She felt unbearable to be ignored as if she were air, and her eyes were gloomy and strange. After a moment, she slowly turned her head and looked at the direction where the three people left. A sneer passed through the corner of her lips. Nan 11. Although she didn't know why Nan 11 suddenly changed, from the moment Nan 11 stabbed her body with a dagger, Nan Yu knew that Nan 11 was no longer the Nan 11 who would be manipulated by others before. In addition, what happened in the past few days was enough to make her understand that Nan 11 really had no feelings for Gu Qingshu. It was not a disguise, nor was it a deliberate attempt to deceive the regent. There is really no affection. So, Gu Qingshu has actually lost his value to her. If she had known this earlier, Nan Yu would not have lost her virginity to Gu Qingshu. She thought that Gu Qingshu could firmly grasp Nan 11's heart and become the son-in-law of the Prime Minister's mansion in the future, and his rise to prominence is just around the corner. As long as Nan 11 still loves Gu Qingshu, she can use the sisterly love and Gu Qingshu to achieve her goals. Whether it is the identity of the Prime Minister's mansion's legitimate daughter or the property in Madame Nan's hands, it will fall into her hands sooner or later. But after she lost her virginity to Gu Qingshu, Nan 11 lost her feelings for Gu Qingshu and turned to the arms of the regent. This is simply unreasonable. Nan Yu reached out and stroked her lower abdomen, raised the corner of her lips coldly, quickly retracted her gaze, and turned to go downstairs. Arriving at the lobby, she walked up to the guards blocking the door and whispered, "Please inform everyone, I have something important to say to the King of Qi." As soon as the voice fell, a black shadow flew out like lightning, and then there was a loud bang. Nan Yu was startled and turned to see that a man dressed as a warrior was kicked out from inside. He looked like he was seriously injured, with blood all over the corners of his mouth, and he fell to the ground and couldn't even get up. Nan Yu didn't expect to see such a scene, and she couldn't help but feel a little frightened and suppressed her uneasiness. Not long after, Yin Shuang walked out of the room expressionlessly, exuding a cold and hard aura. When the guards guarding the door saw her coming out, they unconsciously retreated to both sides to give her enough distance. Yin Shuang walked coldly towards the stairs. Nan Yu swallowed her saliva, watched her go up the stairs, and unconsciously raised her hand to touch her chest, as if to calm her anxiety. "Who are you?" King Qi walked out of the house gloomily, looked up and saw a girl in a white dress standing outside, and his anger was slightly restrained. "What are you doing standing here?" "I have something important to tell you, Your Majesty." Nan Yu lowered her head nervously, revealing a white and delicate neck. "I wonder if Your Majesty is convenient to talk now." The King of Qi looked at her beautiful neck. "What's the matter?" Nan Yu pursed her lips and said timidly, "Your Majesty, the wall has ears." The King of Qi looked at her deeply, turned back to the house. "Come in." Nan Yu lowered her head and followed the King of Qi into the room without saying a word. "No need to sing opera, Master Fukin. Can you tell us what the King of Qi wants you to do?" Nan 11 and Lin Jie sat down in front of the long table, raised their hands to signal Fukin to sit down, and ordered the maid to serve tea. "I think he is here with bad intentions, but if Master Fukin is not convenient to say, we will not force it." "There is nothing inconvenient to say." Fukin brushed his clothes and sat down. His posture was calm and elegant, and every part of his body was elegant. "The King of Qi fell in love with me and asked me to be his male lover." After the voice fell, there was a dead silence in the private room. Lin Jie's hand holding the teacup froze, and he looked up at him in disbelief. "Window. Tabula equals window. Tabula. Tabula.push, mode, thumbs feed -01, container, tabula below article thumbnail -300x250, placement, below article thumbnail -300x250, target. Type, mix.